Wake up and win in your business and life. Welcome to the Wake Up Wednesdays podcast with your host, Lucrease Aguzma. Welcome, world changers, to this month's episode of the Wake Up Wednesdays podcast, where we help you wake up and win in business and life. Today, we'll be listening into our recent conversation with special guest Arielle Loren. Arielle is the founder of 100K Incubator and an advocate for women entrepreneurs. With over a decade of experience working with startups, Arielle's groundbreaking approach to funding and scaling small businesses has been featured in Forbes, Business Insider, Cheddar TV, at the New York Stock Exchange, BET, Essence, Create, Cultivate, Hello Alice, and several others. Without further ado, let's dive right into our conversation about financing your brand. It is a pleasure to have you with us. So please, Arielle, tell our listeners a little bit more about you.
Well, my name is Arielle Loren. I'm the founder of 100K Incubator, which is the first business funding mobile app created for women. We help women get funding for their businesses and also help them reach their first $100,000 in annual sales.
Wow. Awesome. And, one of the biggest questions that I get from clients starting a brand is, how do I get the money to fund this big dream? So my first question to you is, where do we start on this journey to funding our business endeavors?
Well, I'd honestly say the first step is to get educated about all of the different types of funding that are actually available to you. And so I think oftentimes when we start businesses, we either are looking in the wrong places for funding or we assume that we don't qualify. And so one of the main pillars on which I built 100K Incubator is to educate women about 12 different funding options that are actually available to them. And that also starts with getting prepared, right? And so regardless of whether you're going after a business loan, a grant, or if you're potentially thinking about taking on, an angel investor or even potentially approaching a venture capital firm. The truth of the matter is entities and documentation before you can even get to any of that. And so it's really kind of getting familiar with what's required to make sure that I even qualify. 2, what can I actually qualify for? And then 3, actually, I do actually get funded, what am I going to do with the money, right? So we work with women basically to figure out, kind of before they actually end up getting the capital that they need to move forward.
Awesome. And now let's talk a little bit about mindset. When we first start on something new, as entrepreneurs, we tend to get fearful when we don't have the funds to start. How can we cultivate a mindset to overcome this roadblock?
Well, to me, it's actually less of a mindset issue and more of taking the initiative to get educated, right? And so the mindset that you don't qualify or that you can't get funded usually comes from not being educated about what's available. And so if you actually take the time to, do the research, take the course, or even joining 100K Incubator and going through our boot camp, you're going to become a lot more confident. I think you'll see that you actually are able to get access to funding if you position yourself in the right way.
Right. Awesome. That is so true, because some people kind of put roadblocks in front of themselves for no reason. They think that they can't, apply or they think they can't make it, but in reality, it's much easier. And they just need to get educated, like you said. Very good. So now our business is established and doing well. So what can a female entrepreneur do to take her brand to the next level financially?
Well, I think it's looking at what's working, right? And so if you've established a business, you've launched a product or service, and it's going well and you've gotten some traction, I think it's taking a look at how can I scale that further? How can I either, get more clients to increase revenue, or potentially how can I cut my expenses to, increase my profit, or both, right? And so part of, I think, what comes with scaling a business, is one, having a very clear picture about what your financial, history is, and kind of what's actually happening operationally in the business. And then from there, looking at what's actually worked in terms of marketing and advertising, and then how can you actually continue to build on that so that you can continue to scale.
Okay. And do you feel like, we should have knowledge about, income statements and balance sheets and things like that? Do we need that knowledge when we're at that stage?
Well, I think you should have a basic knowledge of anything that's happening in your business. But I firmly believe in hiring professionals, right? And so even as somebody who studied business at Harvard, I still have an accountant. I still have a CPA who does my taxes. So for me, even though yes, I definitely took the accounting courses. I'm not an accountant. That is not my area of genius per se. And I would rather leave that to somebody who is well trained in that area, who has dedicated their life, to that area. And for me to be able to sit in my zone of genius, which is supporting my clients and helping women get access to the capital that they need and scale their businesses. So it's really about knowing your lane, and staying in it, and making sure that you have the right, team of people and the right experts supporting you in your business.
I agree. Totally. All right. So you have an amazing solution for female entrepreneurs that you mentioned before, who need funding, called the 100K Incubator. Tell us more about it.
Well, I honestly started 100K Incubator really just out of an experiment, right? And a lot of personal, experience as being a business strategist. And so I've always worked with women-owned startups, and small businesses. And oftentimes I found that the education of how to get funding and kind of, give your business the capital that it needs, in comparison to how to actually grow the business and scale the business, were usually in two separate places, right? I didn't see one centralized, place where women could come and get educated on the funding and finance side of their businesses. In addition to getting the information on how to scale, whether that's putting, your sales funnels in place, running your advertising campaigns, figuring out how to generate leads for your business, and to, keep revenue going. And so I'm like, how can I create one program, one curriculum, and then pair it with, some solid technology to be able to give women access to this information in the palm of their hands through their phones. And so originally we did not launch as an app, we just launched as a membership site. And then once I tested it and got proof of concept that this is something that, women wanted, that's when we started to transition into actually, becoming an app. And then even now we're actually building on our app software, launching something much more custom. And so, it's a constant, journey. And I think, the more we see how powerful, this community has been for women, this education has been for women, these resources have been for women, the more inspired we become to keep taking it to the next level so that we can serve more women who need us.
Okay, cool. And how can, if someone's interested in getting the app, how can they get it? The cost of anything like that. So how can they get in touch with you?
So I'm going to say just to go ahead to 100kincubator.com. That's going to have all of the latest, information about how to get access to the app, how to download it, et cetera. We're, like I said, in the process of kind of relaunching and, building out a much more custom solution. So our old platform is still up and available, at the time of this recording, but I would say just go to 100kincubator.com. see kind of what's going on, what's the latest. And if you can read also, a ton of testimonials about the work that we do, what's currently, happening, and how we're, supporting women, as we continue to, really build this community and make sure women are getting access to the capital that they need and thriving.
Right. Okay, awesome. All right. So what final thoughts or tips would you like to leave our listeners with?
One, I would say, there are many ways to start a business, right? And there are many different types of businesses that you can start. But I think the most important thing is that you start something that your intuition leads you to, and something that you actually really care about. There are always going to be a lot of industries to make money in, but what's something that you just relentlessly 100% believe in, something that keeps you up at night? Those are the things that I always encourage women to kind of start, because entrepreneurship is not easy. So, there are going to be a lot of nights where you're going to be having to think about things in the business, and those things will also be competing with whatever you have going on in your personal life. So you want to make sure that it's worth it. The second thing I would say is, you know, get access to the capital, you know, that you need. Don't feel like you have to, you know, bootstrap every single thing, you know, in your business. When you look at some of the businesses that have been the most successful, you know, especially here in the United States, they always have access to capital, you know, to be able to give them the runway to scale. But at the same time, you want to make sure you're using that capital in a smart way. And so you want to make sure that you have the right mentors and the right team, you know, who can guide you to not make, you know, frivolous, you know, investing decisions with the capital that you receive. One of the things that we teach heavy inside of 100K Incubator is investing capital in revenue generating activities. So we're interested mostly in, you know, helping you get capital so that you can invest in your advertising campaigns that have been well tested, that we know that will generate you leads and new customers and purchases. And so that's just one example of, you know, making sure that you're putting your money in the right place and you're not spending it on things that are not giving you a return on investment. And also just making sure that you're working with reliable people. You know, and then I'd say the third thing is just to, you know, be gentle on yourself, you know, as well. Running a business, growing a business, it's a long journey. And so I always want to make sure that, you know, anytime a woman, you know, gets into this, that, you know, we're transparent about, you know, what it's really going to actually take, and that she gives herself the grace to actually learn, because being a CEO, being an entrepreneur is an on-the-job learning experience. And so really and truly there, you know, of course there are courses and people who can help prepare you, but you're really not going to learn until you're in your business day to day, running it, making mistakes, having successes, and thriving. So those would probably be the three things that I would share with your audience.
Awesome advice. Sorry, I have one more question. Because you mentioned something about bootstrapping. um, like, what advice do you have for those who are bootstrapping? Like people who don't like debt, people who don't like to take, you know, big loans out. What advice do you have for them?
It's just not how businesses are run. You know, not to, you know, and I think that people don't quote unquote like debt just because they have a lack of understanding in terms of how debt is used in a business sense, right? So we've all been educated and conditioned when it comes to personal debt, about, you know, making sure, you know, our, you know, debt to limit ratios are at a certain point, you know, making sure that we don't rack up a bunch of credit card debt on, you know, shopping and vacations and, you know, all the other things that we might spend money on. But in the business world, it's different. And so, you know, we look at, you know, capital coming from, you know, different financial institutions, whether it's lended out or whether, you know, you receive it, you know, in exchange for an equity stake in your business. We look at that, you know, capital as an opportunity to provide runway for growth, right? And so I'll give you an example. If you know that the Facebook advertising campaign that you've invested in and tested, that for every, you know, dollar you put in to an ad, you make 5. I mean, you'd be absolutely insane that if you had a system already in place that you've tested that's 5xing your money and someone offers you a $20,000 business loan, why in the world would you not take that and turn that into $100,000 on a tested system? And so the fear around debt comes from not knowing and not having established systems in place. It comes from not knowing your numbers. And if you can actually get to the point where you have your tested system, you know your numbers, you know how much money you can generate, then taking on debt becomes just common sense. And so what I would always say is, you know, it's not personal, it's math, right? And the more that you look at it, the more that you understand how to put money inside of your business, the more that you understand how you make money in your business, that's really, to me, what's going to make this such a crystal clear, you know, decision for you. So regardless of whether the capital is coming from a grant or a loan or, you know, an investment, you always want to look at, you know, well, what can I actually do with this money and how much money am I going to make? So always just look at the bottom line, and I think the decision becomes easier.
Awesome. That's a good way to think about it. All right. So to close, you know, let us know how we can connect with you on your social media. Let us know where we can connect with you.
Yeah, sure. So you can always find me on Instagram at Arielle Loren, ArielleLoren. And then, you know, for anything else, I would just say go to 100kincubator.com to get the latest.
All right. Awesome. Thank you so much, Arielle, for joining us. This was a pleasure. And hopefully we're going to
get a lot of clients to you so they can download the app, because I see it's very beneficial for our community and people need to know more about it. So
Well, thank you so much. I definitely appreciate that. And thank you for having me.
Oh, you're welcome. All right.
Today's Destiny Nugget comes from Proverbs 31, verse 16, which says, "She considers a field and buys it. She expands her business prudently." Use wisdom today to expand your business by utilizing all the resources available to you and make an impact in the world. Stay connected with us on Facebook and Instagram at Invisiate. So, until next time, world changers.